The Protective Combat Uniform, or PCU system, is the U.S. Special Forces Advanced Cold Weather Layering System that has been in use since its development in 2001. It was designed by Natick Army Labs along with professional mountaineer Mark Twight, seen here, and features a suite of synthetic, breathable, quick-drying layers capable of sustaining warfighters down to as low as -50 degrees. The goal of this video is not just to showcase the PCU system, but to also teach you how to use it in different weather conditions. The entirety of this video is based off of this visual guide. It's broken up into 8 segments, and the right half is going to be active missions, while the left half is going to be static. And then it's also broken up into 4 different temperature ranges. The first of which is wet and above 45 degrees, 45 down to 30, 30 down to 0, and then all the way down to -50. And then we'll see those same temperature breakouts for both active and static. And in the middle, you'll see a baseline for how each of these conditions should be layered appropriately for. And at the bottom, if you read the disclaimer, this is a baseline. This is not going to work for every single person. So you need to learn how you specifically need to layer for your body's own cold tolerance and physiology. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is by going out and testing it for yourself. So make sure you get out there in shitty conditions and learn. What's so great about the PCU system is that they've simplified the terminology. So instead of saying something like base layer, mid layer, high loft versus low loft, we now have it broken up into 7 different levels. So first we'll have our level 1 base layers, our level 2 waffle top, our level 3 mid layer fleece, our level 4 wind shirt, our level 5 soft shells, our level 6 Gore-Tex top and bottoms, and level 7 has a few different flavors of high loft insulation layers like a vest, jacket and pants, and a parka.
So Mark, how did the PCU project get started?
I am so glad you asked. Well, essentially our soldiers were freezing their asses off in the mountains, so in 2001, the US military decided to ask Marky Mark here and his sidekick Sideburns how we can keep our boys overseas from freezing to death in the mountains. Well, essentially, they asked a bunch of Scottish mountain climbers how they do it because they're actually having fun in the conditions that most everyone else would suffer in. And the result would be a few different iterations of the PCU system coming from different manufacturers, like from the Block 0 and the Block 1, and later even the development of the Army's new Generation III cold weather layering system. And the whole system is based on the concept of drying out as opposed to staying dry. So you have a series of water-resistant layers that will promote quick drying because you're guaranteed to get wet. Whether that water comes from the outside or from the inside, you're gonna get wet. So hopefully that was a good background on what I'm gonna show you next. So take a seat, relax, and pay attention because there's gonna be plenty of mountain tips in here for you. So let's strap on our snowshoes and get to it. Our first weather condition is going to be wet and above 45 degrees. For high levels of activity, we're gonna want our level 1 base layer, our level 4 wind shirt, and a set of camis, or any set of top or bottoms that's at least 50% nylon. In these conditions, depending on your activity level, you'll probably only wear the level 1 t-shirt. This is not a dry fit tee, as dry fit's designed to keep you cool, whereas a base layer is designed to keep you from cooling down. Level 4 is a packable wind shirt that easily stows away into its own pocket so you can carry it in your cargo pants. This way you always have weather protection even if you don't have a pack. The one we see here is called the Stowaway, made by a company called Arctis. I'm a big fan of the Arctis design because of how simple it is. When it stows away, it uses a drawstring closure as opposed to the PCUs, which use a zippered closure. It's also worthy of noting that the Stowaway is only $40 to $60, whereas the PCU is going to run about $150 to $250 used. Arctis makes a much better product in my opinion. Plus, it comes in my size. Sizes are pretty limited for the surplus PCUs. It allows you to be both windproof and waterproof without sacrificing breathability the same way you would with Gore-Tex. This makes it ideal for both low and high levels of activity. The waterproofing is done through simple physics. The top layer, or your camis, is reducing the water's velocity from the sky down to 0. Once the velocity is down to 0, the DWR, or Durable Water Repellent Treated Level 4 wind shirt, is going to stop the water from permeating through the layer. Now we're in the same weather conditions except static. Here, we're just going to see the addition of the level 6 Gore-Tex top and or bottom. The top and bottom that we have here are coming from the PCU Block 1. They're both made by Patagonia, and they're in the classic Alpha Gray. The visual guide calls for the level 4 wind shirt, but that's kind of redundant when it's underneath the Gore-Tex jacket. So I'm guessing that that's just because you're supposed to throw it over all of your stuff to protect you from the rain once you're standing still. But I'm still going to show you me taking off the level 4 wind shirt, showing you how easy it is to close it up with that drawstring and shove it back in your pocket for later use. Now that I've stopped moving, my body's going to start cooling down. To combat this, I'm going to put on my level 1 long sleeve. This is going to allow all the moisture on my skin to be wicked away from the surface, moved through the system, and eventually evaporate. The level 6 Gore-Tex is an extremely lightweight and packable rain layer. It feels almost paper thin to the touch. However, it does feature a ripstop material on the outside, so it's more durable than you think. The zipper and collar run pretty high up to ensure maximum protection from the elements. Gore-Tex is an almost impermeable material. It does not allow water or moisture from the outside in, while still allowing water vapor from the inside to move out. It's marketed as being breathable, but it's really only more breathable than a garbage bag. This is not ideal for high levels of activity. There's no use in wearing a rain layer to protect you from outside moisture if you're just going to be soaked in sweat. However, this layer is highly waterproof, so it makes it ideal for static operation. The level 6 pants are not shown in the visual guide. My guess is because they're not super necessary at this range, but when it's pouring rain, windy, and your body temperature is starting to drop, it is nice to be completely waterproof from head to toe. Gore-Tex isn't necessarily designed to be an insulating layer, but because of how not so breathable it is, it does trap a little bit of that body heat and keep you a bit warmer. I know, this isn't the most exciting part of the PCU system, but it's still very important for you to know. So stop running around in Gore-Tex jackets and pick up a good wind shirt. Alright, let's lower the temperature a little bit. Our next temperature range is going to be between 30 and 45 degrees. It's going to be cold and wet, and for activity you're going to want your level 1 base layers and your level 5 soft shells. The level 5 is referred to by its designers as being the heart and soul of the PCU system. The soft shell is any layer that you wear that's going to be both wind and water resistant, not proof. The level 5 was designed with breathability in mind. Here we can see it has plenty of zippers that allow for mechanical venting. It features a full-length front zipper, long pit zips, and the chest pockets are mesh backed so they can not only be used for storage, but also for mechanical venting. All the mechanical zippers are easily accessible, so you don't have to stop what you're doing in order to open or close them. There's also a hood stowed in the collar, and the material is very similar to the level 4. This is going to be great for keeping the wind and rain off your head. There's a draw cord in the back that's going to tighten the sides a little bit more to your head. This is going to give you a little bit of your peripheral vision back, while still giving you protection. It also has a draw cord that goes around the rim of the hood, and that's just going to take out a little bit more of that slack. The level 5 pants feature pretty large cargo pockets that are zipper closured. I think that zippers work a lot better in the winter, especially with snow and ice. Velcro tends to get iced over and then doesn't close as well. Velcro is also not that great when it's wet. The level 5 already does a pretty good job of breaking up that wind, but if at any point, no matter the temperature range, if it's giving you a problem, you can always throw on your level 4 wind shirt. Just remember to zip up your mechanical venting. You may have already noticed, but the level 5 pants do allow you to run a shock cord around the cuff, that way they can act as a makeshift gaiter. They actually do a really good job of keeping all that snow out of your boots, so I'm really happy that they included that in the design. And you know what time it is. It's time to take a break and go static again. This temperature range isn't going to be too much different from our previous static temperature range, but we are going to add a little bit more insulation. Here we're going to see the level 1 from Halys. This is from the PCU Block 1, and it's a long sleeve. It features a quarter length zip and a collar. I'm a bigger fan of base layers that don't feature a collar because, as you'll see later, those collars really start to add up, and boy does it get fucking old. Here we see the level 3 high loft fleece. This is going to come once again from the Block 1 PCU system, and it's made again by Halys. It's definitely not the best mid layer in the world anymore, but it is a cool piece of history and still not as shitty as the ECWCS Gen III fleece. A mid layer is designed to work inside of a system as opposed to outside. So instead of a high loft jacket that you would throw over everything, you're supposed to put the mid layer inside. This is going to require you to pull off your top layer to put it on, so it's not ideal for movement. This is going to require you to pull your top layer off, so don't be that guy that makes everyone stop because you forgot to pull off your fleece before you stepped off. Make sure you're comfortably cool before you start moving. Now we're just throwing on the level 6 because it is still cold and wet, but we've already seen this before, so I want to talk about mid layers. So we usually know mid layer as being something like a fleece, or some people just use a hoodie, but we're starting to move away from that. Now I know that the Army and the Marine Corps are still using fleeces, but the puff jackets, like the light loft puff jackets that we see from Wild Things, like the Arc'teryx LT Atom hoodie and the Patagonia Nano hood, these are all way better alternatives to a fleece. They also do a lot better with light levels of activity. Biggest downside of fleeces is the fact that they're just not that water resistant. If you get wet in those, you just turn into a wet dog. And the puffy jackets, they pack down way smaller, and they're already wind and water resistant. So they're definitely the future, but fleeces are still a good way to go if you want to just add some more insulation to your system. They're generally a lot cheaper too. Also, if you're interested in the gloves, hats, and boots that I'm wearing in these clips, don't worry, a video is going to be coming on those in the future too. Our next temperature range is going to be between 0 and 30 degrees. It's going to be cold, and because it's below freezing, it's going to be less wet. This is where the fun really starts. So now the temperature is really starting to drop, and we're seeing a lot more snow on the ground. Here we see I'm still wearing the PCU level 5, and the only thing that we've really added for activity is going to be the level 2 waffle top. The waffle top is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a grid fleece with mesh in between. It's very breathable. It's a next to skin layer, so you don't have to wear anything underneath it, but you can still wear your level 1 just to have a little bit more of that moisture control.
That way,
The level 2 waffle top that I'm wearing this is just from the ECWCS system, but a waffle top's a waffle top's a waffle top.
Pretty cool.
They're all pretty much the same, and they do a great job. They're very fast drying, and they just add a little bit more insulation so you can, be a little more comfortable in this temperature range. Now, this isn't part of the PCU system, but this is just a helpful tip. When you're operating at this temperature range, you're going to have to stay hydrated to maintain your core body temperature, all right? So just make sure that you have a way of keeping your water from freezing. This is the Outdoor Research Nalgene Parka, and it did a pretty good job this day, so just putting that out there. So now we're soaking in sweat, and it's below freezing. So we're going to remove our level 1 top because it's soaked in sweat, and then we're going to add my favorite layer of the system, which is the level 7. Level 3 can also be added underneath just for a little bit extra insulation. So the level 7 high loft jacket that we see here is actually coming from the PCU Block 0, the predecessor to the Block 1. Now, a few of you might recognize this as the Orc Industries level 7, but this is actually made by Halys, even though it's in the same style. The Block 0 level 7 is very similar to the ECWCS level 7. It has external hand warming pockets, and it also has internal mesh pockets for you to essentially cook your socks and gloves dry. Level 7 is absolutely essential at this temperature range because it's going to take all that sweat that's accumulated on your body, and it's actually going to cook you dry. It's going to move all of that sweat through the layers and evaporate it, even though it's below freezing. Here we see the matching level 7 high loft pants. These have full-length zippers going up both sides of the pant, so instead of having to step into these with your snow-covered boots, you can now just wrap them around you and then zip them up. These also feature the gaiter function on the bottom of the cuffs, just like on the level 5, and I've also put the suspenders on here because they don't have belt loops like they do on the level 5 and the level 6, although both of those can still use suspenders.
It's still perfectly dry.
Our next temperature range is going to be 0 degrees all the way down to negative 50. Now, we do see people operating in these temperature ranges even right now in current events. Now, forget everything that I said about not wearing insulation layers while active. At this temperature range, you are going to want just a little something to keep that core body temperature warmer. The PCU Block 1 Level 7A vest, like the one seen here, is perfect for that. It allows you to keep that core body temperature warm while still allowing excess heat and moisture to escape through your pits. At this temperature range, according to the visual guide, we've also forgone the level 1 long sleeve. So for our heavy sweaters, the level 1 may be managing sweat a little bit better, but if we add too much, we may begin to sweat at this temperature range, and at that point, it's really just a death sentence. As said before, this visual guide serves as a baseline, so you need to know your body's own physiology in order to use this system properly so that you do not cause any kind of cold injuries. Now, speaking of excessive clothing, now I'm going to show you the coolest part of the PCU system. This is the level 7 Type 2 Monster Parka. Now, although this is not shown in the visual guide, it does still exist in the PCU's manual. This is just the PCU level 7, but large. Believe it or not, this piece of kit is actually designed with activity in mind. You're supposed to wear it over an assault pack because that's going to be less stressful on the body as it would be to carry a ruck, so the core body temperature is going to be a little bit lower, so you can still have a sustainment load while staying warm. And there are some guys way cooler than me that actually use this thing as a cape over their plate carriers. And here's why you shouldn't run in the snow without snowshoes. So now we're at extremely low temperature range and we're static. To be honest, this is going to be way better than being active because the potential for sweating is extremely risky. But in order to stay alive at this temperature, we're going to have to don every single layer of this system. So it's time to go full Michelin Man or Stay Puft Marshmallow Man or whatever. So you're going to have a pretty big ruck at this point because you're going to be carrying around all of your layers along with some extras if you're smart, because God forbid you get soaked, you need to have something dry in there. But the coolest part about the PCU system is just how packable every single thing is. All of these layers do not take up my entire ruck, so you still have room for water, sustainment like food, along with mission essential gear. And speaking personally, I wear this stuff to sleep. I'm literally putting on my sleeping bag right now. If I just get inside of a bivvy with some sort of a whoopee or a blanket or something like that, I can just sleep like this. And if it gets any colder, then you really only just need to carry around like a jungle bag. Now I know a lot of guys have some really expensive Arctic mummy sleeping bags, but be smart. You know, you're already carrying around a lot of insulation layers, so it might be a good idea to just use those as your sleepwear. And carrying a giant ruck like this that's all loaded up through the snow is not fun. So cut some corners, you know, it'll do you some good. Now, I should mention that there was actually a 3/4 length sleeping bag issued with the PCU system made by Sierra Designs. It was called the Elephant's Foot, but they're absolutely impossible to get right now, so I wish I could showcase it here on my channel, but unfortunately, I don't have one. Now, the US Marine Corps has actually lovingly named the Level 7 the Happy Suit. Now, they call it the Happy Suit because of how happy they feel when they put it on after they've been freezing their asses off, but it makes me feel happy because of how liberating it feels to be able to be out in absolutely ridiculous conditions that no one else wants to be in, and not just survive, but thrive. I highly recommend deep winter camping. No one's going to be at the campground, and the best part is, there's no bugs. So that concludes our video. Thank you so much for watching. I had a great time putting this together because this is a subject that I'm very passionate about, and I'm really happy, and I think I was inspired by seeing other people become interested in this subject. So I do hope that this was helpful. And if this helped you enjoy the 4th season, let me know, because I would love that. I also really want to do a breakdown of each of the different levels, as well as the hats, gloves, and boots that I'm wearing. So let me know what you want to see first. And in terms of the future of this channel, I understand that this is currently my only video up right now, but don't worry, I've got some pretty cool pieces of kit in store for you, so stay tuned.